organized by Iranian studies group at MIT. My name is Armours. I'm a lecture organizer of this group. Today we are very pleased to have Dr. Manouchehr Moshtagh Khorasani, who flew from Germany, with us. He's going to talk about arms and armor from Iran, the Bronze Age to the end of the Qadar period. Basically, this is a book similar to an encyclopedia that he was talking to me the other day, and it's going to be published very soon, within a month. And it's a continuation of a research many years that he has done on the arms and armors in Iran. He's visited a lot of museums, many of them that has not been actually publicly open to people, and so he has illustrated a lot of photos and measured many physical properties of those armors, swords, and etc. And it's going to be published in his book. And a short biography of who the speaker is. Mr. Khorasani has a major in English and Business Administration. He's been to many countries, studied in Germany, Spain, and US. So he's been everywhere. His PhD is not in anything related to his topic that he's going to talk about. Is in basically linguistics, computational authorship, identification in written text, study of forensic linguistics. He's a specialist in arms and armor, a realist, and with a special emphasis of Iran. And without further ado, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to be here at MIT and to give a presentation, to give a talk about my topic, about arms and armor from Iran. Thank you very much for introducing me. So it's easier for me, I don't need to do this part now. Let me just go to the objective, because as Farzad mentioned, the book, this we call it in publishing world, or in Germany, in Europe, we call it a blind copy. I mean, shortly, you don't see anything. In 4 weeks it's going to be published. This is going to be my book, so if you want to feel the dimension, this is the book which is going to be published soon. Before I move on and go into the presentation, the first part of the book consists of 920 pictures, black and white pictures, and sketches, which looks like this. This is the first part of the book. I will pass this around so you can take a look and have an idea of what this book is about before I go into presentation. And the second part of this book presents 2,500 colored pictures like this, with all the dimensions of all arms and armor of kings and royal people in Iran. I will also pass it so you can have an idea about that. So this book is, that dimension consists of two different parts. This book, for me, before I move on, started like a dream. For me, it was a dream. It was like 10 years ago, or 11 years ago, because originally I'm a specialist in Japanese arms and armor. So I'm a specialist in Nihonto. For those of you who would like to know what Nihonto is, Japanese sword or Japanese steel is a symbol of Japan. In Japan, analyzing Japanese swords, Japanese steel has a long tradition. Each year, forging, there are smiths who forge steel, and these swords, they're pieces of art, and they're competitions which are much more important as, let's say, a big event in the United States or in Europe. And these Japanese smiths who make the first place, the second place, or the third place are considered as the cultural, intangible cultural asset in person in Japan. So that's where I come from. My world was Japan. My world was Japanese steel. And I'm an instructor in Tanshin Katori Shintoryo, which comes from the 14th century's Japanese samurai art. So we learn to do these noble martial arts of Iaido and Kenjutsu. That's where I come from. 10 years ago, I come back to that, started like a dream for me. 10 years ago, it was, as I was confronted to me, someone said, Manouchehr, you are Iranian. What about your culture? You have arms and armor, you have steel, Persian steel, Iranian steel has had or has enjoyed a very, very high reputation in the region. Why don't you specialize in that? And I just said, really? Because I didn't know about that. And he said, yes, really. It is like that, the same as Japan. And this gentleman happened to be Canadian, a very good friend of mine. So from there I started my journey. My journey started when 10 years ago, I started reading everything which was written on arms and armor from Iran. And from there, I went to Iran and asked for permission to go to these museums. And they granted me this permission. And you see the result, which will be in the market in 4 weeks. What are the objectives of this research? For sure, in order to understand arms, in order to understand pieces of arms and armor in each country, you need to have a solid background, an analysis, an understanding of the culture behind it. I cannot come to you and say, this is a sword and this sword is like this. You need to come back and to go back and analyze it, what it means, how was it made, why did they make this piece of arm, for what reason. What I found out was for sure in the Western world, they divided, there are very good publications on ancient Iran, which analyzes bronze swords, copper and bronze swords and iron swords and some steel swords, and then at the end of the Sasanian period, they stop. Meaning, they start, if you take a look at here, like they call it early dynastic age, 3000 to 2000 BC. Then they go, and as you see, move on to this old Babylonian from 1900 to 1600 BC. Excuse me, I have to jump, go to the other side. And then these books deal with late Bronze Age, 1600 to 1200 BC. Then we have different Iron Age, 1, 2, 3, up to here. Then I move back to where I was. The medium period, I think Iranians know this very well. And specifically for Iranian history, everyone knows when these Aryan tribes moved into Iran. And the Achaemenian period, Cyrus the Great established the Achaemenian dynasty in Iran. And then after that, we had this Alexander the Great invasion, or Alexander invasion, and Seleucid period. And we have Persian period, Sasanian period, and they stop at 651. All the publications you find on Bronze Age, Iron Age, or Steel Age about Iran, meaning 651, that was it. That's for them arms and armor from Iran, ancient world of Iran. I was the scholar who didn't believe in this. Why not? Because I always believed, the first thing I did, I always looked into the references. And I just said, why didn't they cross-reference with Iranian scholars in Iran? Why didn't they use any materials and references from Iran? The answer was, there are no publications in Iran. They were not. I said, I cannot believe this. So I started from there. I started to network with Iranian scholars and archaeologists in Iran, and found out that there are top scholars and top archaeologists in Iran. I will come back to that later if we have time for that. And from 651, when the Muslim conquest happened, when the Muslims came to Iran, and then Iranians became Muslims by force, or if they accepted it. And after that, in the West, it starts like Islamic arms and armor. So there we start. Every publication you find in the United States or in Europe or everywhere always talk about Islamic arms and armor. This cannot be true for one simple reason. We had a big conference in Europe on arms and armor in general. I said, what about if I say Christian arms and armor? Would you accept that? Everyone laughed at me and said, no way. We have French arms and armor, we have the Prussian, German, we have different ones. You cannot say the Roman or whatever. I said, the same is for our country. Why do you say, or our region? You have to differentiate by culture. You cannot just have one block of Islam and call it Islamic arms and armor. So there I started, and this is the major objective. This has been my major objective, to go ahead and to stop at the end of the Qajar period, which is 1925 Anno Domini. So that's where I stopped my research. I don't want to go into this cultural and historical background. Just wanted to mention that from 651, after the Muslim conquest, when the second Caliph Omar came into Iran, and Iran back then was conquered and the whole region. From there, 200 years, we experienced this Umayyad rule, and during this Umayyad rule, basically there were not so many big independence movements. But after that, we had this Abu Muslim, who started to help the Abbasid to come into power, and the Abbasid dynasty was established. You can read about all these dynasties in the first 2 chapters in my book and the consequences of each one of them on Iranian arms and armor. That's what it starts. Now let me come back to this, leave this history and come back to what it means for us. The piece you see up there in front is made of pure gold. This is from Achaemenian period, as you see up there, and we have from historical sources that this piece of gold, which was cast from pure gold, was given by Achaemenian king to all the Franks and all the people who did special service to the kingdom. The symbol, or the cover of the book is like that, is a combination between pre-Islamic Iran and after that, which is this shield is a rhino hide shield from Safavid dynasty. We will see regarding the Iranian cultural influence, or the so-called Persian cultural influence in the region, that many pieces of arms and armor were heavily influenced by that. And we will go back to that later when I show that to you. The first metal which was used to make pieces of arms and armor was copper. Weapons made of copper were cast, the same as we call it. Later on they added tin, and later on they added arsenic to them to make them more stable, to make them heavier and harder, and they always cast them. If you want to understand what casting a copper or a copper alloyed weapon means, they had different, let's say, if you have this one, which is cast of gold, you make the same shape out of clay or any other material, and then you just heat the stone which is metal in it, and you pour it into that, and it takes the shape of this. And if you make a slight mistake, then it cracks. And then when it gets solid, then they break the clay mold,